Hello and welcome back to SciTech. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a very simple device that can allow you to cool down during summer that only uses a few simple components. Let's get started. And these are the items that you're going to need to make for this project. The items you're going to need is two 9-volt batteries, two 9-volt battery clips, a buck converter, which will step down 18 volts down to 12 volts, which will then power this PC cooling fan. You're also going to need a 10K ohm potentiometer, a 1N4007 rectifier diode. You're also going to need a Tip122 transistor, which will be used to control the speed of the fan in the circuit. You're also going to need this knob, washer, and nut to be able to attach to the potentiometer, and all of these components will attach to this Perfboard, and all of this circuit will be placed inside of this housing. And this housing actually came from a previous project where I did a teardown of a tennis racket bug zapper, and this is perfect to attach this fan onto and to house the electronics. Now, let's go ahead and assemble this project, and let's get started. First, I'm going to start with the buck converter, and what I'm going to do is take the screwdriver, and I'm going to adjust the potentiometer that's on this buck converter. What I need to do is adjust it to the appropriate voltage. I'm going to take the multimeter, apply voltage from my lab bench power supply, and I'm going to take a measurement with using the multimeter, and I'm going to use these alligator clips to connect everything together. Turn up the voltage on the lab bench power supply up to 18 volts. And if you're wondering where the input and output voltage goes on this buck converter, it simply shows it on the opposite side of the board. The input voltage goes here, which is input negative, input positive, and then output negative and output positive. I'm going to connect the lab bench power supply to the input and the multimeter to the output. Take the screwdriver and adjust the potentiometer. And there, as you can see, it is now set at 12 volts. Now the buck converter is ready. Next, I'm going to take a 10K ohm potentiometer and put it onto the Perfboard. And now, solder it into place. Solder in the first pin so I can remelt it so it's flush with the board, and then solder in the rest of the pins. There, perfect. Next, I'm going to take the Tip122 transistor and place it into the Perfboard directly behind the potentiometer. Clamp it down. Solder it into place. Next, I'm going to take the 1N4007 rectifier diode. I'm going to place the negative over towards one of the leads of the potentiometer, which I choose the left lead. And now put it into place. And now solder it into place. Bend over the lead. And now solder bridge it to the potentiometer. And there, the diode is now connected to the potentiometer. Next, I'm going to take this bridge wire and connect it to the center pin of the potentiometer to the base of the transistor. And there we go, solder it into place. And there, the base of the transistor is now connected to the center pin of the potentiometer. Next, take another bridge wire and connect the final pin of the potentiometer over to the collector of the transistor. And there we go, the collector is now connected to the final pin of the potentiometer. Cut off the excess. Next I'm going to take the two 9-volt battery connectors and connect the positive and negative together, and then leave one positive and one negative free. Doing this will amplify the voltage to 18 volts. Take a shrink tube, place it in one, solder it in the wires, connect the two wires together, and now take the shrink tubing and shrink the tube. And there we go, it should look just like this. Next I'm going to take the buck converter and I'm going to connect the positive to positive and the negative to the negative input. Place it in, clamp it into place, and solder it into place. And there we go, it should look just like this. Next I'm going to carefully bend the transistor over to give the circuit more space. There we go, just like this. Unfortunately, I couldn't bend the potentiometer the same way because the leads are not long enough. So what I need to do is remove it from the circuit and reposition it. Next, what I'm going to do is solder tin the potentiometer. And I'll place it back into the circuit into a new orientation. Solder it into place. And it should look just like this. Next, I'm going to take the buck converter and place it onto the perf board. I want to put it in this position. And now I want to cut the perf board to make the perf board a little bit shorter. And there, everything's now becoming more compact. Next, I'm going to take these two wires and I want to connect it to the output of the buck converter to connect it into the circuit. First, solder one wire to the potentiometer and the other wire to the other end of the potentiometer, and then solder one wire to the positive output. And I've noticed that I can't place the buck converter up here. It doesn't really work very well, so I'm just going to put it on the opposite end. And now I'm going to take the negative wire and solder it to the negative output. Put some hot glue onto the perf board, and glue down the buck converter. Next, what I'm going to do is take this PC cooling fan and I want to connect it to the circuit. And then I want to be able to place it into this housing. First, what I want to do is open up the housing, do some slight modification, and open up the housing a little bit more to do some more modification. And now I'm going to take the PC cooling fan and I want to place it right here onto the screw. Unfortunately, the hole on this PC cooling fan isn't big enough, so I need to make a bigger hole. And there, now it's a perfect fit. This piece here is not necessary, so I need to remove it. And this one too, and this one too. And there, now I can place the circuit inside. Now I need to solder tin the wires that are on the PC cooling fan. Make the emitter of the transistor, which is right here, to the positive of this fan, and then solder it together. And then I want to take the negative of this fan, and I want to connect that to the positive of the diode, which is right here, located underneath, right there. Solder the positive wire into place, and now solder the negative wire into place. And there, the circuit is now complete. Let's go ahead and test it out. Connect the two 9-volt batteries together. And now turn the potentiometer, which will then turn on the fan. And of course, control the speed of the fan. And there, as you can see, it works. Next, what I'm going to do is place the entire circuit inside of the housing. Place the fan right here. Take the circuit and place it over here, with the potentiometer sticking out. Now I'm going to take the two 9-volt batteries and place them here and here. I need to do some slight modification to the housing in order to fit the batteries in place. And there we go. Now I can place the two 9-volt batteries in place. Place in the circuit, push down on the potentiometer, and I can put the knob on it. The knob will hold the circuit in place, so that way the circuit won't move. And there we go. And now I can go ahead and close up the housing. And now screw the housing into place. Connect these 3 screws into place. And there, everything is now put into place. Except a slight problem right here, since there's no more screws to connect it anymore. So what I have to do is resort to a sloppy method, which I don't really like doing, in order to close up this housing. So I'm going to use some of this electrical tape and just simply tape it closed. And there, the housing is now closed up. And there, as you can see, the project is now complete. It looks very nice, except don't look at the sides because they're a little bit too sloppy. So hold it in this position so it looks okay. So now I can just turn on the knob and it causes the fan to turn on. And then turn the knob the opposite direction, it turns off the fan. And there. And there you have it. Now you know how to make your very own DIY summer cooling fan with using a Tip122 transistor. And there you have it. Stay cool during summer. Thank you for watching SciTech. I hope you learned something new, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course click the bell icon to be notified for future SciTech videos. Till the next tech, goodbye.